You are not here by accident. We are standing at the edge of possibilities between what is, what could, and what will be. Where time, space, and humanity cross paths. Where the future has stopped being theory as old assumptions fade away and new realities are becoming real. Are you ready to step beyond the familiar? Look no further and enter the third horizon.
Before we begin, let us step back for a moment. Across this series, we have explored systems, how they hold together, how they are recognized, how they survive, and how they fail. We have examined cohesion, adaptation, time, complexity, wisdom, and the values that shape outcomes. But as we step back, a pattern begins to emerge, because the systems we build are not separate from us, but they do reflect us. And that leads to a deeper question. So the question becomes, if systems fail in predictable ways, what is the constant behind those failures? Because across history, across cultures, across technologies, the structures do change. But something else does not. That is, reoccurring human behavioral patterns. Tonight, we explore those patterns and which ones succeed versus those that fail. Empires rise, institutions evolve, and technologies advance. Yet the same patterns repeat. And that suggests something important. The limiting factor here is not always the system itself. It is the behavior within it. History is filled with examples. The Roman Republic did not fall because it lacked intelligence. It fell because internal cohesion broke down. Faction or tribalism replaced function. Loyalty shifted from institutional to political, tribal, and special interests. The same pattern appears centuries later. The financial crisis of 2008 was not caused by a lack of information. Warnings did exist. Models existed as well. What failed was judgment. Short-term incentives overrode long-term stability. And even in highly advanced systems, that pattern continues to hold. The Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. Engineers raised concerns. Data suggested risk. But normalized behavior overrode caution. As physicist Richard Feynman said later observed, for a successful technology, reality must take precedence over public relations. for nature cannot be fooled. This lesson extends beyond engineering. Reality eventually collects every debt. Whether that debt wants to be collected or not. Modern science offers insight into this pattern. Behavioral economics shows us that humans do not always act rationally. We rely on shortcuts, hysterics, mental models. We respond to incentives. We favor the present moment over the future. Psychology shows us that group identity influences decision making. The tribal instincts still affect modern institutions and societies. That perception can diverge from reality. And complexity, science shows us those small behavioral shifts can cascade into system-wide outcomes. Which means even well-designed systems can fail if the behavior within them becomes misaligned. But behavior itself is not random. It is influenced by deeper forces. Human beings are constantly pulled by competing forces. The desire for security, the desire for prosperity, the desire for meaning, and the desire for belonging. Here on the third horizon, I call these the 4 vectors of human development. The stabilizing vector, which represents security, the generative vector, which represents prosperity, the guiding vector, which represents purpose, and the bonding vector, which represents belonging. Every civilization is shaped by all 4. Every institution is shaped by all 4. Every individual is shaped by all 4. The challenge is not choosing one. The challenge is balancing them all. Because too much emphasis on, say, security and stability can become control. Too much emphasis on prosperity and growth can overwhelm wisdom. Too much emphasis on identity and belonging can become tribalism. Too much emphasis on ideology and purpose can become dogma. Healthy societies do not eliminate these forces. They balance them. And ultimately, people decide how those forces are expressed. And now, a word for our sponsors.
This episode of The Third Horizon is brought to you by CoinToss Coffee, a brand built on passion, family, and the bold leap into possibility. Every blend is handcrafted from Kevin's own recipes, including their best-selling Cowboy Roast, bold, smooth, and unforgettable. And right now, listeners of The Third Horizon can enjoy 10% off their order at cointosscoffee.com using promo code Horizon10. That is cointosscoffee.com. CoinToss Coffee. Take a chance on a better cup.
This is not a new realization. Thinkers and wisdom keepers have recognized it for centuries. Aristotle observed, "We are what we repeatedly do," meaning character becomes behavior. Behavior becomes culture, and culture becomes structure. James Madison warned, "If men were angels, no government would be necessary." The implication is clear. Systems are not designed for perfection. They are designed to manage human behavior. And perhaps no one captured the human variable more clearly. Excuse me, I have a bit of a sore throat, so you have to excuse me. I am working my way through this episode, but I will do the best I can. And perhaps no one captured the human variable more clearly than Viktor Frankl. After surviving some of the darkest experiences of the 20th century, he wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a gap, a space. And that space is our power to choose our response." And perhaps that space is where civilization is ultimately decided. Systems matter. Values matter. But people choose the how, the what, and the why of that matter. Michael J. Fox once said, "Choices. Only you can decide, because the only person responsible is you. If you make the right choice, there is nothing you cannot accomplish. If you make the wrong choice, all your other decisions are made for you." And perhaps that is the deepest lesson of all. Every system, every institution, every civilization is ultimately shaped by a series of human choices, one decision at a time. History is not merely the story of what happened. It is the story of the choices that made it happen. This reveals something deeper. We have spent this series studying systems, but what we have really been uncovering, patterns in ourselves. Consider the journey: integration capacity, knowledge and wisdom, the cohesion hierarchy, statehood, stability and adaptation, the collapse of context, cohesion, and the architecture of morality. Different subjects, different frameworks, different questions, yet every path led to the same destination: the human variable. Knowledge is useless if people refuse to learn. Wisdom disappears when people ignore long horizons. Adaptation fails when people become too rigid. or too chaotic. Cohesion collapses when trust breaks down in people. And moral systems fail when people stop living by the principles they claim to support. Different systems, same variable, the human being. As we move forward, the stakes increase. Artificial intelligence, biotechnology, global infrastructure, space expansion. Our systems are becoming more powerful, more interconnected, more complex, which means the impact of human behavior increases. Because technology amplifies action, but it does not replace human judgment. John F. Kennedy once remarked, "Our problems are man-made. Therefore, they can be solved by man." Technology changes, but needed human responsibility and stewardship does not. If behavior does not evolve, then failure scales with capability. But if wisdom evolves alongside capability, humanity's future horizons expand. And now, another word for our sponsors.
This episode of The Third Horizon is also brought to you by FCA, Fine Consulting Agency. If you need high-level policy analysis, structured research, or strategic writing tailored for government, space governance, or nonprofit sectors, FCA delivers clarity, organization, and deep insight. Learn more at fcaonline.info, that is fcaonline.info.
Across this series, we have seen the same structure emerge: cohesion, recognition, survival, fragmentation, time, values, adaptation. Each one of those matter, but all of them point towards something deeper: the human variable. Franklin Roosevelt reminded a nation facing uncertainty, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Fear can preserve. Fear can protect. But fear alone cannot build. Abraham Lincoln spoke of the better angels of our nature. And perhaps that has always been the challenge. Which part of human nature will lead? Fear or wisdom? Tribalism or cooperation? Short-term gain or long-term responsibility? History provides powerful examples. After the Second World War, Europe faced a choice: continue centuries of rivalry and conflict, or pursue cooperation. The result was one of the longest periods of peace and prosperity in European history. The bonding vector, trust, cooperation, and shared identity moved in a positive direction when they created the United Nations. Take the American Civil Rights Movement. It provides another powerful example. A nation confronted the gap between its ideals and its actions. Progress did not come easily, but the decision to expand dignity, equality, and opportunity strengthened the nation rather than weakened it. The guiding vector, purpose, morality, and principle helped move the American society towards a more stable future. And history's greatest scientific achievements tell a similar story. The Apollo program brought together hundreds of thousands of people across disciplines, institutions, and political differences, not through uniformity, but through shared purpose. The generative factor, innovation, discovery, and human potential, accelerated what civilization was capable of achieving, which turned out to be landing on the moon. Different examples, different centuries. Yet the same lesson appears. When the four vectors become balanced, human capacity expands. When they become distorted, civilizations begin to struggle. Because people are the source. Character multiplies outcomes. Freedom requires responsibility. Culture shapes choices. Leadership sets the tone. And every generation decides what comes next. History demonstrates this repeatedly, not because people are incapable, but because human behavior ultimately determines whether our strengths overcome our weaknesses. And perhaps that is the lesson hidden beneath this entire series. For months, we have explored knowledge, wisdom, complexity, adaptation, cohesion, morality, and the structures that shape civilization. Yet every path led to the same destination, the human being. Because knowledge does not guarantee wisdom. Because power does not guarantee responsibility. And systems do not guarantee good outcomes. People do. The Systems and Survival series began with a simple question. How do civilizations endure? What we discovered is that endurance is not merely a matter of institutions or technology or resources. It is a matter of human behavior. The choices people make, the values that they live by, and the responsibilities they choose to accept. Because every civilization, every institution, and every future is ultimately built one decision at a time. And that brings us to the next horizon. If behavior shapes outcomes, then the next question becomes, what patterns of behavior constantly lead people astray. Because these patterns are not random. They are predictable. They are repeatable. And they are within history. And they leave traces across history. In the next series, we begin mapping those fault lines. Not in theory, but in human behavior. The habits, the instincts, the fears, the motivations, the blind spots, the forces that shape who we become, and the choices we make. But because before humanity can understand the future, before it can shape its destiny, and before it can reach for the stars, it must first understand itself. If you are someone who senses the world shifting, if you feel the tension between what is and what could be, if you believe humanity is meant for something more, then welcome. This is the Third Horizon. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. More conversations are coming, deeper, wider, and firmly focused on the future. If you like today's podcast, hit the like button and let us know in the comments, and subscribe to our Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook channels, or whatever platform you are watching from. And do not forget to share this podcast with your friends and family. And until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon and beyond.